Hello, everyone, and welcome to KFC SuperCoach TV. I'm Al Payton at the Herald Sun. It's been a bit of a crazy morning, it's fair to say. Luckily, I spent a fair bit of time on my SuperCoach team yesterday because I haven't had much time to think about it this morning. News obviously dominated by Leon Cameron announcing he's no longer going to coach the Giants. I guess a mutual decision, as they said. So whether you just think it was Leon's idea or the club's, but he's had a press conference this morning and confirmed that Sunday against the Blues will be his last game as the Giants coach, and Mark McVeigh will take over as caretaker for the rest of the year. So obviously huge news in the AFL world and might have some SuperCoach ramifications. We'll get into that shortly. But Dan Begala's with us, and I think the fandom's not far away as well. But Dan, a quick reaction to the Leon Cameron news first up, and how's your SuperCoach team trekking this week?
Thanks, Al, and welcome. I was pretty surprised. Woke up, as you know, I've got an infant and I'm a long service leave, so woke up pretty late and saw the news. My phone was running hot. But I think that's probably, he goes out with his head held high, very stoic to the very end. And, to make a grand final, a couple of prelims, could have easily won the 2016 series if they beat the Dogs at Giants Stadium. And it's a shame to see him go, but it gives someone a new opportunity, probably a Clarko, whoever it might be, and Mark McVeigh for the interim period, which is a good stint for him, probably 15 games he might get. But what we could see here is a lot of role changes. I think we could see a Cornelio back on the pill. We might see Whitfield unleashed again. We could see many changes, a myriad of changes. So we've got to keep our eye on how this plays out, because McVeigh, when you think about it, what's his motivation? He wants to get as many wins as he possibly can. He wants to show that he's a worthwhile candidate for the role, perhaps. Again, I'm not sure how that's going to work for them, but there'll be some serious ramifications to suspect at GWS, and they're definitely not out of the finals race just yet. But I probably would have preferred he wasn't coaching this last game against Carlton, missing McKay. They're going to go out swinging, I suspect. So it's going to be tough to beat them up there, and potentially for his last game. We'll see how they go for him. But, it's obviously sad when any coach leaves the game. But 10 years at the comp, getting paid a very substantial wicket, I think it's not too bad for Neon Leon. He's done all right, I think.
Yeah. No, I think he spoke really well this morning. But, it is interesting. We saw last year when Nathan Buckley quit mid-season and Robert Harvey took over, didn't he? And basically decided he was going to play Jordan De Goey in the midfield, and it turned him into a really KFC SuperCoach relevant player for the back end of the season. So there's a few candidates at the Giants. We know Leon likes to throw them around. So, Lockie Whitfield's been playing absolutely all over the place so far this year. So if he could settle down into a position, hopefully, on the wing or maybe on half back, that could be good for SuperCoach. So I'd definitely be keeping an eye on that. I suppose if you've got him, you're probably not trading him out just yet. Maybe we've got a couple more weeks till maybe 3 rounds until GWS bye. So that'd be a good time to assess if anything has changed there. And Stephen Cornelio is the other one who's been interesting the last few rounds, has really hardly got any centre bounces at all. He's still been scoring okay. But is that a concern for you going forward? We sort of thought Cogs was going to be just lock him away and stick him there for the rest of the year in the forward line, but now he's basically playing as a full-time small forward, but hopefully that might change. He might go back into the guts under Spike McVeigh, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's his nickname was Spike McVeigh. I'd love him to go back in the guts. He's the ultimate team player, captain of the football club, and I think he's still a captain, joint captain with Josh Kelly and Toby Green. But I think, I just suspect he'll go back into the guts. But the thing is, we never know whether these players, being Cornelio, the rabbit as they call him, are battling any injuries. We don't know internally what's going on. He could have some sort of injury we're not aware of, and they're just trying to get him through games, etc. A la Gorn last week. But I suspect he'll go onto the ball and he'll find the footy again. And I've got no concerns. Like the main thing is, I do know I'm around 12 bye, and I think there's a lot of us in the same boat. I'm very susceptible to donuts, I think. I don't like to ever serve them up, and last week I had to pivot my trades to avoid one. But I suspect I might have to move a Butters, a Cornelio, a Ridley, one of those underperforming primos or not really entrenched in the top 6 out of my side that week to get to 18. I think that's what's going to have to happen, because I know that at round 14 I'm absolutely stacked with players, particularly Melbourne players, which is they're all in the bye that week. So I'm thinking I'll have to structure my team up and probably punt a few of these guys, being Butters, Cornelio, or Ridley in round 12, just to get to 18 players. So he's not exactly settled in my side, but everyone's got him. 65% of coaches or 70% of coaches got him. So I just really turn a blind eye to that particular spot on the field. But I think Phantom this week has the added benefit of being able to loophole him and Butters. So it's a pretty envious position to be in. And his team's leading the charge and flying. So welcome the fans.
Oh, thanks. Good to be here, guys, again. Goat, our Peyton. Now, Goat, I was surprised that I didn't see you pop up at the Miami Grand Prix complete. Photo. Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, David Beckham, Lewis Hamilton, Dan McGarr. I thought you were going to pop up next to me. Would have fit in perfectly. Nice to see you guys. Yes, I've got a bit of a luxury. I'm going to keep going hard with the trades and will allow me to push Will Brodie back and then maybe loop on a Cornelio or Butters. But just quickly on the Cornelio thing, we talk about the Giants' traditional moves and what Leon Cameron's done to some of those players. But is Stephen Cornelio now more effective to the Giants, given what they've got in the middle as a ball-winning half forward who can kick goals? We've seen him hit the scoreboard. He's been very good for what the Giants are trying to do. So we're talking about, I think Lockie Whitfield is a definite one. I think him going back has been so much better when he's been freed up. I think that needs to happen. But is Mark McVeigh better off just leaving Cornelio forward, given how good he's been? So that'll be one to watch for me this week. I'm with you, Dan. I'm not trading either out just yet, but looking to probably move them on. Well, Zach Butters, I'll give him a few weeks to turn things around. I think he can do that, but then reassessing at the bye.
Yeah, we should have known everything sort of worked out for the Phantom this year, and you've had Leon in the gun for years, and now you finally got him.
I feel a bit bad, actually. You know, I've gone for Leon Cameron before. He seems like a very genuine, nice fella. I watched his press conference this morning, but no, thing is, he's played Tom Green. He finally realised that Tom Green was their best centre bounce midfielder. He's done that this year, and now he's gone. So good parting gift for the KFC SuperCoach community.
Yeah, no, that's true. Now, there is some other news around this morning, which is also very relevant to KFC SuperCoach. One is that Josh Gibcus is going to miss Richmond's game against the Hawks on Saturday through, I think he's in health and safety protocols. He's been a fantastic rookie. He's still got a really low break even, I think. So if you've got him on the bench, I think most of us have decent coverage there. I can certainly bring on a Sam DeConing or Nathan O'Driscoll or somebody. So I won't be looking to trade out Gibcus, although if you had an option there, it would free up a bit of cash. But I wouldn't be rushing to get him. There's no defensive rookies around, which I think the Phantom, you've actually traded in a defensive rookie this week, but not someone you're expecting to get any points out of.
Well, yeah, I think I've been forced into it to able to afford Andrew Brayshaw in my midfield and keep some of the other guys on the bench. I have to trade in the Goats boy, Bodie Uland, into defence. It will allow me to get the best scorer out of Paddy McCartan, Sam DeConning anyway. Yep. Not ideal, but I think for the makeup of my team, I want to do it. I want to go hard. But maybe you can go up. If you've got Gibcus, maybe you go up potentially if you want to fill a spot in defence. I want to ask you about one. I see you going Dane Zorko this week. The questions come up a lot. I answered it. I try to answer it in burning questions. Now, which veteran do we like better in KFC SuperCoach? Dane Zorko, the high ceiling, or the reliability of Scott Pendlebury? You've obviously not listened to me given I wrote about Scott Pendlebury. You want Dane Zorko?
I did see that. Look, I just got sucked in by, Zorko was so good for us last year. Brought him in around the same time. And his price had dipped at that. I looked it up and it was under 500K at this stage last year. So he was an absolute bargain. But then averaged, I think, 118 for the rest of the year in that mid-forward role. The start of this year, he was playing in defence. He's had a few injury niggles as well. I think he got subbed out in one game, which resulted in a really low score. So his price has dropped. But then with Keaton Coleman coming back into the Brisbane team across halfback, he's gone back to that mid-forward spot that he loves and that we just know he scores so well. And he scored over 120 the past two rounds. So I just think I'm sucked in by the upside. Like, I think I know Pendlebury is the more reliable option. Like, he probably will I think his lowest score is 97 or something for the year, Pendlebury, but he gets between that and 115 pretty much every week. Whereas Zorko, you might cop a 50 one week, but then he might get 170 another week. So it's hard to, they're very alluring, those big numbers when they come up. So, and I just think he's a little bit of a pod and in defense, although Pendlebury would probably tick similar boxes that, I can't really afford to get all the way up to, say, a Tom Stewart, or probably not, not really keen to bring him in after, his price is probably coming back down again. So looking for someone who's a little bit more value. And I was going to trade out Nick Dacos, but maybe it will be Gibcus this week because a couple of people pointing out here that his break even's 46, which is a little bit higher than I potentially thought. And also, as Matthew Murphy, our long-time watcher, points out, he has the round 12 bye. Whereas Dan pointed out, that's probably going to be the most troublesome buy for a lot of people because a lot of our popular premiums are going to be missing that week. And it's always the trickiest buy anyway because you can't really trade around it. Like, if you've got players missing in round 14, by the time that comes around, you can trade in guys off who've already had their buy in round 12 or round 13. So that's round 12 is definitely the one to be wary of, and especially when this week we've got a bunch of great rookies on the bubble, but they all pretty much have the bye in round 12 as well. So even if I'm trading out a Josh Ward or someone like that who's not scoring great, but that's one less body I'm going to have on the field in round 12. So that's definitely something people should be paying attention to. I think Pendlebury's also a great option, and I think him and Zorko both have that round 14 by 13 or 14 anyway. So they're both good options, but I'm a bit of a sucker for Dane Zorko, and I shouldn't say this, but part of it is just because I know it annoys Tim Mitchell whenever he scores well. So I just thought it'd be a fun roller coaster to get on. The other news quickly this morning. Oh, also Rome asking here, where's George Hewitt? Do we know the answer to this? I think he's still down as a test, isn't he?
He trained on. I didn't get down there, but Drew Jones, who's competing with Rhino in the West for the best fantasy tweeter or reporter, has confirmed that he trained, I think, earlier this week, or he was running around at full strength. They said that the big test will be whether he gets through Friday, because we're playing Sunday, obviously, so our captain's run final training session will be on Friday. All eyes will be down at Prinny Park, but I think he's got to get up, right? Danger got up after 2. If it's any worse than that, I mean, he wouldn't have trained on Tuesday or whenever we had our training session this week. So I suspect George will get up. I mean, it's if it gets any longer than this and he misses another week, then it probably was someone we probably should have shorted in hindsight. But if he gets up 2 weeks, not the end of the world. We've covered him with Sam De Koning, who's been absolutely fantastic and come of age the last 2 weeks. But I'm sort of conservatively thinking he'll get up this week to play, which would be a great in for 65% of coaches. He's an absolute jet, and he's probably the second best defender based on averages at this stage still, which is great.
I mean, the other injury news, Dan, you were talking about just before we went live was Harry Mackay at the Blues, which wouldn't be in too many KFC SuperCoach teams, but that's a big blow for them. He's out for about 6 weeks. But any concerns there about Vossi throwing the magnets around, and maybe Paddy Cripps might spend a bit more time in the forward line? Yeah,
well, I've changed to my friends from the Carlton fraternity that we sort of engage with on the week, and I thought, well, there's no brainer. There's no real replacement for Harry Mackay, Coleman medalist, an elite forward, 205 centimetres tall. Cripper is the likely replacement there, but I don't think he'll go like for like, go and play full forward the whole game. But I do think that his breakdown of centre bounces versus time spent resting up forward will increase. And it's not the end of the world for Cripps owners, because he's been absolutely dominating up forward. Like, I mean, kicking straight, but like on the lead, it looks like Nick Riewoldt in his prime. It's just, it's quite uncanny, the turnaround in Paddy Cripps. Obviously a broken back last year, or a fractured spine, whatever it was, to come back and be on 18 Brownlow votes, most likely from 6 best on grounds. That's what I've sort of assumed he's done, 6 best on, 6 wins, and I think he's on 18 votes. So I do think it won't be the end of his scoring if he does have to go forward or spend greater portions of the game up forward, because he's just getting the second best or third best defender behind Charlie Curnow, and it's just he's booting bags of 3 pretty much every week, which is pretty exciting and good as a Carlton fan.
Might get mid-forward eligibility. There's another round of DPPs coming.
Yeah, pity I shorted him when he had his hamstring injury. So it's been really hard getting him back, because I got absolutely surprised last week by Ridley's laid out. Had my trade laid. He was back in my team at $521,000, and then following Twitter all day, Mitch Cleary came out and said he was out, and it just threw my team into chaos. Had a donut in defence if I couldn't cover, so I had to bring in someone for the missing defender, and unfortunately there's only 3 games left for the round, so it was Brisbane, Carlton, and I think St Kilda left over, so I had to take someone. I just thought Jack Sinclair, and he underwhelmed, unfortunately, but he had a lot of centre bouncer tendencies in the second half. He looked really good in the second half, so they got pumped, so it's probably likely you're not going to score well in a shellacking.
4 teams actually. 4 teams actually goat. You forgot to mention the Crows there.
Yeah, sorry. And then Monkey Dawson.
You did mention me as well about it too. Yeah. Well, you did have a conversation about that on Sunday. So
I should have done it, because he looks great and he suits the buys. He suits the buys really well. I don't know what I did. It was my O pick. I just saw the average of Jack Sinclair, and I thought it's a really nice pod to have, and I just thought he's a quarterback. He always gets the quarterback helmet on fan footy.
Yeah.
I thought I've got to have Tom Brady in my team. He's another GOAT, so I'll bring it in. And unfortunately, it hasn't started well, and unfortunately, it's actually made my round 12 bye look even grimmer than it currently is. So a lot of restructuring to do before round 12 with trade.
He's going to be a good one for people to maybe pick up coming off that round 12 bye, because his price is coming down a little bit after a couple of
back-to-back 80s.
Time he's dropped under 100 for the year. Yeah, that's right. Yep. So, and Jack Steele will be popular there. So I think I'm starting to put all that together next week. Keep an eye out. We'll have a full buy planning guide. And there's also mentioning those DPPs. Tim Mitchell's got some great numbers from Champion Data about who's spending time forward, especially. And, Jaden Short's probably going to become a def mid, and there's a few really interesting changes. But anyone there you're keeping an eye on, Phantom? We were joking yesterday in the chat that you could end up with about 5 or 6 Bulldogs in your forward line.
Well, yeah, that's it. They're the ones, again, Bailey Smith champion data tell us, I think, is currently above the forward threshold. I believe going back through Tim's 37% forward for Bailey Smith at the moment. So if they were awarded next week, Bailey Smith would be a KFC SuperCoach forward, as would Marcus Bontempelli. So I think we spoke about this, a few weeks ago before the first lot of changes. We said we could have, 6 Bulldogs. You throw Tim English back into the mix in your forward line. How many is too many? They can all score well together, and obviously you don't need to average as high to be in the top 6 or 8 in the forward line, as we know. So the Bont struggling a little bit to keep pace with the top end guys in the midfield. But if he does become a forward, then he automatically becomes a top 2 or 3 player. So Bailey Smith is sort of in both. So Bailey Smith's the one for me I'd be watching. I haven't got Tim English yet, and I want to get him in as well. So very interesting. Definitely something to think about when you're planning your trades ahead of the buys now over the next month.
And the other big news that we need to mention is Max Gorn. Obviously, he's been under a bit of a cloud all week, copped a knock in that game against the Saints last week and played a bit forward and didn't score that great, which was a bit annoying for those of us who have him, and another win for people who don't. But it looks like he will get up and play this week. He's been cleared to go and play in Perth. And I think Simon Goodwin said today he's not in the business of resting players, which was something that we thought might happen flying over to play the Eagles. But that plays into, Dan, what do you think of big Sean Darcy as a potential trade-in option for maybe people who don't have Gorn? You can get him, I'd have to look at the exact prices, but he's probably, 70 grand cheaper or something. And he's really starting to, recapture that form that we saw last year when he was just scoring out of this world.
Yeah, well, I mean, he played against Goldie on the weekend, which is quite impressive, the reason he scored the 176 odd. But I guess the one word I have for Darcy, unfortunately, and it's just untrustworthy. Like, I feel like his body and his ability to play 22 games is really questionable. Like, I think we've seen him be subbed out of at least 1 or 2 games this year with either concussion or a knock or this, that, and the other. And he missed round 1 with some sort of either H&S or a last-minute injury. But his scoring potential is absolutely undeniable. Like, I think he went over 200 twice last season, possibly even 3 times as the season wore on.
But 90, yeah.
Yeah, and I just think that he's scoring a double-edged sword. You take the good with the bad, and the bad is that he sometimes is susceptible to soft tissue, and he's been hit in the head a couple of times. So that's the thing that would worry me about Sean Darcy. And like, many people were balancing whether Gorn or Darcy at the start of the year. Everyone thought it was Grundy season. He's back, and obviously got hurt. But I was tinkering with Darcy, but the reason I didn't pick him in round 1 was because I just knew his inconsistency with his body is the thing that scares me off. And I think for players that are looking at him now, I mean, try and possibly find the 70 grand and get up to Max, because Max will obviously got through that injury against Paddy Ryder, just a knock, no PCL, which is great. But I just think Max is set and forget. And I think Fans will get there eventually once Hayes stops out scoring Gorn for a week or 2, which would be good. But yeah, I mean, the ruck could be a really pivotal space on the ground where people do make up points. And Fans now deployed an elite mid in Andrew Brayshaw into his guts, which I don't have. So he's ahead of me there. I'll probably play Ricky Martin at mid-8 or McComb. Live in La Vida Loca, McComb at M8, and Fans is playing Brayshaw or at M7. So that's the difference there. And contrasting that, he has Hayes, who's got the second most leading hit-outs to advantage over the last month or so. So he's got a guy that's probably going to have a trough of 85 is probably as low as he's really going to go, except let's just disregard that Darwin game or that game in Cairns when it was the humidity was 180%. I think outside of that, he's got a really good position there. And I think the people that took Hayes and took that sort of really aggressive position of playing on the field are going to be rewarded over the next few weeks, because he's got a pretty good run coming up. I think they've got North Melbourne this week. He'll hit it to Boak and SPP and all those other blokes and Butters. They'll all play them into form with his hit-outs. And I think it's a good move. But the Darcy thing, for me, the body is something I just can't trust, unfortunately. I wouldn't pick him. But who knows? Maybe in years to go by, when he gets a couple more pre-seasons under his belt, he'll be the best ruck in the comp, I suspect, when Gorn hands the crown over to him, if not Jackson.
Yeah, so just looking up, he's 595k Darcy, and Gorn, he's about 660. So Phantom, you're sort of looking ahead in the calendar. You're always sort of penciling in to maybe try and get Gorn before this West Coast game, because we know they're very depleted in the rucks. I mean, how are you feeling about that at this stage? I mean, is Darcy someone you would consider? He's still, I mean, I presume, I don't think you're getting Gorn this week. So is he part of your buy plans? And then the other part of this question from Corey is Brayshaw, obviously another player that you're a fan of. Would you be advocating getting him in this week?
I'm always tempted by Sean Darcy. I was one of those guys Dan mentions, was thinking about starting him in round one, and probably would have if he didn't have that late calf injury the week before the first game. So bit of luck there. He just always finds a way to get injured, and we spoke about this over the preseason. He did it. He found a way to get injured last year, but the good thing is he kept played through some pain last year, which is a good thing. I think I want to see him find a little bit more consistency in his body. We've seen him put 3 or 4 rounds together, and it's already resulted in some big scores. I'd like to see another month of that. On the Gorn thing, I was thinking about doing it this week, but I think now that lower score from last week, the knee issue maybe to Jackson probably does more ruck work. I think this week they won't rest Gorn off the field, but they might rest him a little bit more on the field potentially. So I'm going to wait. Ideally, I do it for the bye. But again, round 14, it's a long time to wait without Max Gorn. So I'll weigh that up. But my extra forward is probably the one I'm going to turn into Max Gorn, I think. Probably the easiest. It's not going to get out of hand now, his price, I don't think, because of that sub-80. So I might just wait and see this week. Brayshaw, I think it's good buying, 570K. In his last 11 games, he scored a 190 and a 189. So not many players have done that. Not many players under 600K have done that either. So I do like Clayton Oliver. I think he's going to outscore an Andrew Brayshaw from here. I think Tuke Miller probably even outscores Andrew Brayshaw from here. But for the round 14 buy, which is the same as Clary, but in terms of money, if you don't have enough money to get to those guys, I think Andrew Brayshaw is a great buy this week. Yeah,
agree with that. Now, a player coming up here we haven't talked about all year, Dan, but one of your all-time KFC SuperCoach favourites, Jake Lloyd. He was in my team for the whole summer, and then I took him out when he missed round one, and I'm sort of really glad I did, because he has not been the same Jake Lloyd. He hasn't been terrible, but he hasn't hit any great heights. But it just seems like Sydney have a few more players down there that can share the ball around. But he was really good last weekend, scored 116, and he's only 488K. Is he someone you could take a look at?
Oh, 100%. Like, Jake Lloyd has his name entrenched in the Hall of Fame at the Begala Brigade. He's been that fantastic with a score of 170 against Freo 2 or 3 years ago. I was at my wife's 30th. And then with last year's grand final heroics in the SuperCoach grand final, he helped me win every single league I was in, because he became a pod, I think, through perhaps an injury late in the year, but he had 150-odd plus against Gold Coast, which was I always said he's always got a place at my dinner table if he ever wants to come around. But yeah, I like Lloyd at 488K. I think he's a sleeper. Like, he's just been sitting there doing his business. But I think what I saw in that game against the Gold Coast on Saturday afternoon, when the game was on and they sensed the urgency there, they thought, we're going to lose this match. He was probably one of the players I just noticed was really showing signs that he was trying to have a crack and win it for the Swans. And they obviously didn't get the job done. But I think the likes of Blakey, he's pinching a lot of the penetrative kicks that he would normally get out of defence. Plus, you throw in the likes of their defence is based on that rebound turnover McCartan brother duo. And I think what he needs to do is get behind those blokes and get the easy handball at the side and then rebound like that. But I'm not the one to go and educate a two-way runner, elite defender who should have already been an All-Australian but isn't, how to play. But I like him at 488K. I would probably consider him as well if it works for me this week, depending on teams, how they lie, because he'll end up finishing with an average of 105 plus. I know he started slow, but he'll get that back. And the only way he gets there is he's going to have some good scores over 120. So I think that's what's going to happen. I really liked his game. And I mean, how do you guys feel about him? I really like him at 488K. He's a 600 grand defender. It's arbitrage in my opinion.
Interesting one. I agree with that. I think I just want to wait and see a little bit more. I think he could be the one, if you've got a spot in your defence, look at after the buys for the back half of the year if he's put together a good month. And yeah, some question marks with his low scoring. I know what he's done in the past, but, is he past that? That is probably the question some KFC super coaches are asking. I want to see a little bit more, but good buying at 488K. And again, you've got to take advantage of the value in this game. And if he does put together a few more scores, then he won't be as much of a bargain. But I think I'd be pretty happy buying him in the mid-500s if he was to put together a good month.
he's got the round 13 bye there, so could be handy time to you trade out of Dacos or Driscoll, who've got the round 14 bye, and trade him up to Jake Lloyd. That'd be a pretty nice swap. Yep. The other big topic we need to talk about this week is rookies. I see Matthew Murphy, we mentioned before, he's looking maybe at a double downgrade, which is old school super coaching that we haven't really done much this year. Now we're boosting all the time. But, I mean, could you do it this week? There's lots of really good rookies around. Ash asking here, Dan, about Jack Carroll at the Blues, Cooper Hamilton at the Giants. We'll see what Mark McVeigh does with him. But Maurice Rioli Jr. is the other one who's the most traded in player this week. He's 123K mid forward. And then you've got a couple of ruckmen as well. Stranatica and Aiden Begg are also on the bubble if anyone is in a position to bring in a ruckman on the bench. But, how would you rank these guys, and how many of them do you think we can pick?
Yeah, well, I think you could triple downgrade if you really wanted to do something really novel. There's 3. There's another one there in Cooper Hamilton, Jack Carroll, and obviously Maurice Rioli. So that is an option. But guess what? All 3 of them sitting on the R12 bye, which is an absolute nightmare, unfortunately, because you're going to have to short 3 blokes out, being Ward, McDonald, Rochelle, I don't know, whomever it might be in defence, Nathan O'Driscoll. So you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. You're taking 3 warm bodies off your field this week to probably put yourself in some really difficult scenario in round 12. So I actually watched, obviously, the Carlton game, but I watched Cooper Hamilton run around, and I actually liked the cut of his jib. I thought he was a really, really neat player, really efficient with the ball, aggressive, strong tackling. There was a lot to like about him. Whether Spike McVeigh has the same views that I do, I think at 102K, I like picking those blokes up because the upside immediately is quite good. You get 50, 60 grand week 1, 50 the next, and you can exit them within 3 weeks, really. You don't have to hang on to them too long to make money. And last week, McComb was a good example. I mean, he didn't look flash in the first quarter. I think he was minus 12 points, and he ended up with 73, and he's got a great little trajectory now to get to 250K in 2 weeks' time, and probably move him on if we don't need him for the buy. So ranking them, I probably rank Rioli number 1. Obviously, his job security is probably the only thing I'm concerned with, but his scoring potential is the highest. Probably number 2 is, I think, Jack Carroll, because his round 1 debut was just fantastic. Kicked the goal, really looked good. And now with Cripps having to possibly go forward, maybe he goes Batman and Robin with Walsh and Hewitt in the guts, and maybe gets a bit more opportunity there. And then the 3rd is probably Cooper Hamilton, because I don't know enough about him, but I do like the way he looked. And who knows, does Spike just go back to the well and get the big dog top 5 draft picks, grab them all, stick him in the guts, and he gets squeezed out to a back pocket or back to the NEFL. The VFL, the VFL, formerly known as the NEFL. But yeah, that's the way I rank. I rank Rioli, Carroll, Cooper, and I'll probably take 1 or 2 of them this week to hopefully get a premium into my side. My aim is to bring a primo in, and unfortunately, Cripps, I mean, probably the weirdest decisions. My wife just couldn't believe it when I told her about it, because she follows me very distantly as to how I'm going, not very interested. But I told her when Carlton was winning on the weekend, I said, this is really hard to watch. And she said, why? I said, because Cripps is going absolutely bonkers and I don't have him anymore. So I have to get him back from my own, sort of like Tim Mitchell. I have to get him back from my own sanity. I've got to get him back on the side. Yep. But he robs my side of warm bodies in round 12. So I actually probably have to take Petrarca or Brayshaw. And I don't really want to, I don't really want that, but I probably have to do it intelligently. I have to do that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's tough game.
Yeah, I agree. I probably have a Carroll and Hamilton, probably both above Morris. I'm not it was very good on the weekend again, but I like Hamilton, like what Dan Magala said. I was at Adelaide Oval a couple of weeks ago when he made his debut and was very efficient, didn't make any mistakes, very clean, and looked very assured for a player playing his first game. And it was the same again against the Cats. So he had 0 clangers on debut and only had 1 last week against the Cats. So he's not making many mistakes. He wins the ball one-on-one too. So he's a player that doesn't need to have a lot of the ball to get you a 60 point score in KFC SuperCoach. So I like him at 102K. Jack Carroll for that top end scoring. I like him as a player in general. For me at this point, I'll probably bring in Stranatica just because of who I have to get rid of. And I've still got Jack Hayes there. But yes, him or Cooper Hamilton for me, given the basement price. That's just because I can't afford it anymore. But Carroll and Hamilton at the top for me.
And Cooper Hamilton's mid-forward, so it probably suits a lot of size and helps you free up your team. Does that put any pressure on your round 12 buy at all, Phantom?
Oh, a little bit, and that's what I'm still weighing up. But I just need a 102K guy, and if I'm throwing the position, I'm putting myself in more trouble for any buy round as well. So it's got to weigh up what happens there. Again, my primo count, I'm looking at that, looking at balancing my primos over those 3 buy rounds. Yes, it's going to be good to have a rookie to field, but again, if we get a 30 or 40, is that going to be outweighed by having all your premiums there balanced out better rather than just trying to get the right rookies for the buy? So still got to play out, but again, for the KFC SuperCoach out there, have a look at what you've got for the buys, and if you can't decide, then of course that might help you make the final call.
Yeah, it's a really tricky one. I mean, Morris last week, I was definitely not advocating getting him in after that first game. He kicked 3 goals against West Coast, which was great, but you don't want to read too much into that, the way the Eagles are going. And I think at about quarter time, he was still in single figures in that Collingwood game. And I even put in our chat because I think fans of you were contemplating going early on him. And I said, lucky you didn't do that. And then it turned out he had a really good game. I think it might have been the second or third quarter. He had a really big quarter where he had those 2 big rundown tackles that turned into goals for the Tigers. So it's encouraging that he can score 70 without actually kicking a goal. But, I mean, he's just a classic small forward. We saw what happened with Malcolm Rosas last week.
Oh, yeah.
He was still like -5 at halftime or something, finished with 18 points. You definitely wouldn't want to be playing him on the field. I think his job security is good at the moment. The Tigers definitely look better with him buzzing around up forward, creating a bit of chaos. So, yeah, it's a tricky one, but I quite like the look of Cooper Hamilton as well, and he's only 102K. I'm contemplating maybe just taking one of these guys and then going a week early on Greg Clark. I know some people have traded him in already, but I haven't done that, and then we don't have to get him this week. He'll be on the bubble next week after missing that week with the health and safety protocols. But getting him in this week means I can put him on the field instead of a McComm type in the midfield. And then next week, the only issue is I'll still have a little bit of money in the bank and I'd be in a good position to maybe trade up a Matt Rowell to a Tuke Miller or something, but I'll have to find a downgrade from somewhere. And if it's not Greg Clark next week, I'm not 100% sure who it's going to be. And probably the defense would be a good spot for it, where I could trade maybe a Gibcus or DeConning or someone who's made a bit of cash. But, there's not many around. Buku, Karmas and Rory Thompson both played their first game last week and scored modestly, it's fair to say. So if one of them had a good second game, that might help me out. But otherwise, I might almost have to go down the phantom path of just picking a donut basically back there. But, so that's another way around it too, of maybe bringing Greg Clark into the mix. But then that just gives you another extra name to choose from. So it makes it potentially even more complicated. All right, we better start wrapping things up. We've been going nearly half an hour. Question around the buys, and like I said, we'll have a full buy guide up soon. But Neville Christensen asking here, is it waste to hang on to a boost for the buys? I mean, that would give you potentially 4 trades in one of the buy rounds, which I must admit at the start of the year, I was thinking that sounds pretty appealing because that could help really get you out of a hole, because in the buys we often get caught short, especially if there's an injury or something that you're not planning for when you've only got the bare 18. But, I mean, I know, Phantom, you've gone really hard with the trades and the boosts. Are you keeping any in your back pocket, or just use them all now and hope it works out later?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think we discussed this last week. We're all racing to try to get full primo, but then if we're full primo by the buys, then what are we doing to balance our 18 each week? Because in previous years, we might do 3 or 4 upgrades across the 3 buy weeks, and that we're going to upgrade off players coming off the round 12 buy. Then we're doing another 2 upgrades of players coming off the round 13 buy. And we're finishing our teams and also giving ourselves 18 across each week. That's what we used to do. So if you're going in to round 12 now with 22 primos, you're almost going to have to sideways trade a few. And I guess that's where the Butters and the Canutos and the Nick Martins of the world do come in.
Yep.
But I think we've just got to use your boost. I haven't used as many as Tim Mitchell, our friend. You mentioned. I think he's probably up to
he's found some
7
extra
now.
ones, hasn't he?
He's got a couple of extra ones. I've only used, what am I at, 3? I think this is my 3rd this week, my 3rd boost if I do it. And I'm probably just going to keep doing it to get to full premium. I don't think I'll need it for the buys, and I don't think you'll need it going out of if you're full premium coming out the buys, it's unlikely you're going to need 3 trades a week unless you get 3 primo injuries, which is pretty unlikely.
HNS.
True. So that's it. As a 1 week, you give yourself some good cover. Then I don't think I'm going to really need 3 trades any week after the buys if I get some good cover and at full premium. So I think, Neville, if you can use them, upgrade your team, give yourself some bench cover, then hopefully you don't need that extra one coming home.
Yeah, I think, the only danger would be if, COVID goes, what the West Coast have had to deal with, that goes through Melbourne and we all of a sudden lose 4 players in 1 week or something. But, I mean, in most cases, they're back the next week anyway, so you don't necessarily want to be trading all those guys out. A couple of quick ones that I've seen in here. Someone asking about the great man back last week. Do we get Dusty in? Now, I started with Dusty in my team, and he scored 100 in round 1, but I think he got in the 80s last week. I definitely don't think we need to be rushing to get him in, but it wouldn't shock me if he's one of the better forwards in the back half of the year. I mean, the top 3 or 4 forwards look really good, and then it's a bit wide open after that. I'm certainly not in any rush to get rid of someone like a Will Brodie or even Nick Martin. I think they're very capable of holding down F5, F6 for a little while yet until it sort of sorts itself out, and maybe those DPPs come into it as well. That might make the decision for us, but I'll definitely be keeping an eye on Dustin, as I would be anyway. There's a few questions here about Dusty, actually, but yeah, so watch him, but not this week, even though I think he would technically be on the bubble. Someone asking about Rao. I think, I mean, it's just whenever that fits in your plans, I think it's fine to trade him, isn't it, Dan?
I think with the buys, they're looming. They're only like a couple of weeks away, 3 rounds before the buys kick off. So you just nurse those fellas to the buys because, I mean, Rao is having games where he has 13 touches and 88 points, and I'll just bank that away. I'm happy with that. But he will have a game where he just pounds out a 30-toucher and a couple goals. So that's what I'm sort of holding my hat on. And, I mean, he's the least worry on my side. Nick Martin, Matthew Rowell, Zach Butters. I mean, Zach Butters at Adelaide Oval is kryptonite for my team, and everyone else is averaged about 53.5 points there. But other than those, I don't really worry too much. And back to Fance's point with the boosts, as Vincent Freeman says at the conclusion of Gattaca to his brother when he trumps him in the swim, he says, "How do you do this?" He said, "I never saved anything for the swim back." And that's exactly what Tim Mitchell and myself have done, because I'm up to my last boost because I've just been decimated with injuries and being very aggressive with my long-short strategy. And I'm going to boost again because points now, and I think what we've been privileged with this year is that the boost is worth, in my opinion, if someone was to do some analysis on it, I reckon the boost, you could say trade per point, would be worth more now, getting your side to a fully premium outfit and then dealing with the sideways move you might have to do if you get there, because you can't get those points back. The people that are 2 premiums ahead of me and absolutely flying, they're going to add 150 points per week on me, and I can't get them back unless injury hits us all and Armageddon hits through H&S, which I don't think is going to happen. It's a good move, but I mean, in past, I've looked through my history, my trading history, and like I run to the end very thin. I run with like 5-6 trades from like round 13 onwards once the buys are concluded, and I survive most years. I might have to play a Macomb off the bench. It's not ideal, but you can get there and you can still have trades in the finals because, as we know, these top tier premiums, like the A-grade All-Australian pushing players, top 60 in the comp, they rarely miss. Like they play through sore injuries. Like Jack Crisp never miss. Jake Lloyd never misses. Max Gorn never misses. He's hurt his knee and will never miss. So that's the way I play it. And I think, as Vincent Freeman says, is there any worth in really holding anything for the swim back? I don't know. I'm not going to hold anything for the swim back, but I could get caught with the bathwater or the tide going out of me, and you never know. I might not be wearing togs. So you want to make sure you're wearing togs if the tide goes out.
Now, we'll get to some quick captain selections, but someone has pointed out in the chat a tweet here from at Kyle James Page is down at Punt Road this morning watching Tigers training, and he says, looks like Dustin Martin coming off the track with an ankle injury. A very long-range photo taken on his phone there, so it's a bit hard to tell, but that's one to maybe keep an ey out for.
You can make some calls out.
Yeah, I might have
to your mates down there.
Call Brendan Gale.
Have you had a look at the captaincy this week, Dan? I mean, we've been looking forward to Gorn against the Eagles, but given his little injury concern, and it's the last game of the round, so if you go in and sort of all in, is that something you'd still be brave enough to do?
I think what everyone will do, and I'll open up SuperCoach on Friday night once the first bounce happens, I suspect everyone will go most likely Neil against Adelaide into Gorn, or they'll go Neil into Petrarca or Neil into Clary or Neil into Cripps. Otherwise, some might take the punt again on a captaincy with a vice captaincy with McRae against Collingwood. Doesn't have the best record there, but I just think Neil with Jackson Haitley in his pocket is a recipe for 50 touches. Like I saw Cripps get tagged by Haitley, and when I say tagged, I've got the inverted brackets or whatever you call them, commas. Haitley couldn't control the big wildebeest. He was just too strong. Kick 3, dominated, and it was a weird matchup. And it was a matchup that I thought maybe Nix wasn't in the coaching box, and that's maybe how it happened. But if Haitley goes to tag, and again, I use the inverted commas, Neil could get off the chain with a 160, I think. That's what I'm forecasting.
Yeah, no, I like that. I've got Brady Hoffers by Donuts, who plays in the last game of the round, unless he's a surprise inclusion this week. So, it gives me plenty of options. But, I think those Bulldogs against the Pies on Friday night, you couldn't go too wrong there with Gorn or even a Clary. Oliver, a lot of us have him as a backup in the last game of the round on Sunday. Quickly, I'll get your thoughts, Phantom, and we'll also double up with the Zinger of the Week, which we love. And Ryan Smith has got one here for the Phantom. I know we should credit for the Phantom to jumping on. I know there's H&S protocols happening over in the lair at the moment, so he's battling through it and done. He's really fronted up, played hurt. So we really appreciate that. But
he's spread it though, hasn't he? If he's played with H&S issues,
just within the lair, I think. It's just as long as it's cordoned off outside
okay.
there. But Ryan Smith asking
household contacts.
If Tom Green double tons, will we find out who the Phantom is?
Oh, it's a big one. He's a chance to do that, I think. Tom Green. He was scoring well last week, 86 points at three-quarter time. Had about 7 claims, I think, in his first 7. Gave away 3 free kicks, directly his opposition in his first 4 kicks in the last quarter. Very frustrating watch. I think it's a chance, Ryan, so I'm not going to reveal myself in that, but when you think about something to do with Tom Green, maybe if you can push into the top 3 KFC SuperCoach midfielders. But with my captaincy this week, I can't. Jack Macrae, I overlooked him last week, but a Friday night Jack Macrae or a Thursday night Jack Macrae, probably just can't overlook that. And I think I'll go Clary against the Demons.
Yeah.
If that doesn't work out. Sorry, my voice is going a little bit.
I think it's probably time to call it quits here because the Phantom's struggling. But no, we really appreciate you hanging with us for this long and on a big news day in the AFL as well. So we've got to go back and find out what's happening at the Giants and the rest of the footy world. But get on the Herald Sun and the Advertiser for all of that, and of course all your KFC SuperCoach information and news. That great article by Tim Mitchell with the DPP numbers is a great read, and we'll be tracking those over the next few weeks, which will give us probably a whole new world of trade options as we come into the buy. So plenty happening. But good luck, everybody, with your trades and your team this week. Dan, thanks for joining us again. And the Phantom.
Thanks, Chance.
We'll talk soon.
Everyone.